Hello everyone, my name is SwingPoynt and welcome to Resident Evil Resistance. This is the multiplayer game bundled with Resident Evil 3. And today is going to be advanced tips for Mastermind. I did an advanced tips video for survivors forever ago. I also did a Bioweapons video which will teach you a lot about your Masterminds. Today what this is going to be is teaching you things that you pick up just by playing Mastermind a bunch. If you're starting off as Mastermind and you're getting creamed, a bunch of the things you learn in this video are going to up your skill within like 10-20 minutes just over the duration of this video. You're going to be significantly better at Mastermind just because you watch this video. Okay, what this video is not going to be is it's not going to be builds. I'm not going to be sitting here showing you how to make a build for each Mastermind. I got lots of videos on the channel for builds. Go ahead and look them up. If you're interested in Alex, type in SwingPoynt Alex Resident Evil and then it'll come right up and then you can watch whatever build video you like for Alex, Daniel, Annette, Spencer, Nikolai, etc. Okay, so without further introduction, let's get into it. Let's teach you some things about Mastermind. Now these tips are going to be fast, they're going to be rapid fire, so pay attention. So real quick here with the Nia, something you can know about the Nia, you control this thing. You see how it does its tentacle spear? Well, something you can know about the tentacle spear is, let's say I'm doing a dance here. So he's dancing, you can still attack using your tentacle spear. You can still attack using your tentacle spear if your legs are down as a Nia as well. Let's say they got their legs shot out and all they can do is crawl. You can keep using this thing. Another technique with zombies here, if you click grab while you're walking, you move faster. So let's say area 2, you want to move Yorick around to put him in a better spot. Go ahead and grab, it'll speed you up a little bit, just a little bit of speed. And then one final thing on the zombies here, you see the claw? 1, 2, 3. Every single zombie does that. 1, 2, 3. And now I'm mashing my button a lot, but it takes a little bit before I can start that sequence again. So you swipe in threes. So time out your position like that. So what I do a lot of the time is I go 1, 2, 3. Then if I gotta turn around, this is when I do it. It's during that little pause. Okay? Supply zombie spawned here. Something you can do with a supply zombie is you can try to control them. And then the reason why you would do this is you take 50% less damage as a creature that you are controlling. So if your supply zombie is about to get attacked, you can go ahead and try to keep it alive a little bit longer by controlling it. Not only because you can move it, but because you also take less damage. And then speaking of supply zombies, I can spawn a supply zombie nowadays. So let's say all your survivors are over here working on an objective. Well, if you have a supply zombie in your deck, you can go ahead and spawn them like, I don't know, right here. And then what they're going to have to do is either leave what they're doing over here to come kill the supply zombie, or you're just going to get a really cool beneficial card from your supply zombie, which is awesome. And then speaking of supply zombies, that kind of reminds me. So I just got a blinding flash from a supply zombie. In area 2, when you are trying to stop the survivors from doing an objective, you can use something like a blinding flash to go ahead and interrupt their actions. So let's say they're doing a terminal in area 2. Use a blinding flash and it'll interrupt to them. It buys you more time. So what else do we have in our hand? There's so much to teach you about door games. Something I love to do with doors is I'll lock a door. I'll put a lockdown trap next to it, right around this angle. Let's say we're trying to imagine where a survivor is going to run out of the door. So if you're trying to protect the door, what they're going to try to do is they're going to try to run out this way to get some distance on you. So I like to put it right around the corner where they would naturally walk. And then I'll take some creatures and I'll try to hold the door. Right? So there's a lot of ways to hold the door. So you can see where my icon is right now as a zombie. Now picture survivors are trying to walk through the door, and then what they can try to do is they'll try to beat through the door. And there's a few things that happen when they try to beat through the door. One thing that'll happen is they'll beat through it and then they'll back off. So in that case, I can reclose the door on them, right? And then I can keep doing this and it's really hard for them to walk through. You play door games like this, it is so hard to get through as a survivor. So what do? That means that they have to force themselves through and run through. And what they end up doing a lot of the time is they'll hit a trap because they have to rush through and they can't look at what they're doing. So when they hit a lockdown trap right here, that will relock the door behind them. This survivor here will get stunned and then I can just beat the crap out of them, or I can bite them. All right? There's a lot that you can do with survivors when you go ahead and stun them with these traps, and you can really force the situation on doors.
How does fear drive the will to survive? Do pain, suffering, and loss detract from that will? We shall see. Aren't our eyes made to be torn
Good scan.
out? And hearts the same purpose?
He messed up. They messed up bad. Everyone just did. And let's say they do come through a door. Well, what should we know about that? Well, first off, let's spawn these double zombies and let me show you something about the double zombies. You see that? Now I'm going to control one. You see how this one stands up faster? That's something to know. If you control a zombie while it's spawning, it will stand up faster. And you just got to see that as an example with the double zombies here. But now you see how this zombie attacked Jan from the front? And then he had to like struggle to bite her because she's resisting. Well, if you go from the back, it's an instant bite. It's real fast. You get those 15 seconds, except you put in way less work for it. So if you have a chance, try to angle up your bites in a way where you can hit him from the back. Another thing, oh, I guess she's going down. So I'm going to show you a little bit about chain biting to kind of combo off what we were just talking about, but something really interesting just showed up in the deck. So take a look at my imposter zombie here, right? If I use discount, he's not going to cost as much. Something to know about discount, it only is on this camera. I go to a different camera, it's not working. And it's temporary. All right? Now we have another card in the deck that does a different effect. And it's called the creature efficiency card. And there's a lot of different efficiency cards. There's trap, there's gun, and there's creature. So with energy booster creatures here, I use this, and then he goes down to 1, and now that's going to work on any camera. And it's going to be permanent. So if you're plotting out your deck, efficiency cards are permanent. They affect all cameras. Discount is temporary, and it only works on one camera. Same thing with hypercharge on Spencer, okay? Now let's talk a little bit about chain biting here. So I'm gonna go ahead and get rid of this, and then get rid of this. Ooh, I got to teach you some stuff about the energy leech here too. But now let's go ahead and get some creatures in here. So I'm gonna spawn these dudes over here. I'm gonna spawn an imposter over here. And we're gonna teach you about chain biting. Chain biting is a really important technique. So imposter zombie's probably gonna go chomp him. Or a few of them might go chomp him. There we go. So what you'll see here, he gets chomped, and now I have another zombie that's being controlled. Now I bite again. And then you get out, and then you try to control another zombie. Just like that. And then you just keep biting on him. That's chain biting. If you get a survivor that ran off on their own, make sure you chain bite. You can milk so much time off of them and chain bite them. And what that'll do for you is it'll down the survivor like this. You get probably a minute's worth of time off of them. It's great when Tyrone does it because he has the most health. Tyrone has 1400 HP at base, which means he can take the most bites. So if you chain bite, you really take a ton of time off the clock. You down a survivor, which will take even more time off the clock. And since a survivor's downed, another survivor might try to save them, which puts them in a vulnerable position as well. Now let me show you why you gotta be fast with chain biting here. So creature's gonna go bite Tyrone over here. I'm gonna go control this one, bring him over here. Now you see how he's getting bit? Now Tyrone's gonna push him off. You see how I didn't get stunned there? If I'm controlling the zombie, he won't get stunned. But now this guy might get stunned. You see how he gets pushed back? That's a really big deal. So you need to cycle your zombies really quickly. So you need to make sure you have a controlled zombie by the time he's pushing him off. Or, again, you always go for the back bites if you can. But again, you got to cycle your zombies quickly because if you're controlling a zombie, it's not going to get pushed back. All right, that's a really, really, really big distinction. Other things to know about your zombies. If you are controlling a zombie, its legs cannot get shot out. So sometimes what survivors will do is they'll take a shotgun or they'll take a fast-firing weapon. They'll shoot the legs of the creatures, which turns them into a crawler. Your legs cannot get shot out if you're controlling the creature. Legs cannot get shot out if the creature has regen. And legs cannot get shot out if it's an imposter zombie. All right? Now, if the legs are already shot out on a zombie, putting regen on it isn't going to repair its legs. Controlling it isn't going to repair its legs. Okay? So make sure you get into the zombie before they shoot the legs out. So something that masterminds can do is they can use EIS to go ahead and control the environment, right? They can lock doors like this. They can go ahead and use lights. Something that I don't think a whole lot of people know is when you use firearms, you can still use EIS. You can still lock doors, you can still do this, and you can still do all of this all at the same time. You can use EIS while you're in a firearm, and that includes enhancers as well. All right, a few more things to teach you about doors. I win the majority of my games because of doors. So let's take a tough zombie here who's got poison on him. Few things to learn here. Now, you see how he has this poison aura?
And I shall.
If I do this, and do this, and do this, and like, let's say the survivors are just kind of hanging out, or they're trying to open the door and I keep closing it, they're getting poisoned by this aura. This poison aura will work on them every single time the door is open. So flashing it like this causes them to get poisoned. This is a really big deal when you play Alex, which I play Alex a ton, so I benefit from this a lot. Another thing you might notice here is there's stairs. Stairs are really awesome when you're a mastermind because you can go ahead and go, rah, rah, rah. And then if they're on a stairs, the survivor will tip over and you'll get a really, really fast bite animation. The reason why that matters is it doesn't give their teammates a lot of time to save them from the bite, which means you're going to do a ton of damage, you're probably going to do a ton of poison, and you're also going to get a ton of time off the clock. Another technique to know with doors is, let's say a survivor's beating on the door and they're all by themselves, right? A lot of times, especially on Abandoned Park here, the teams will split up. One person will go on their own and three will go the other way, something like that. So if somebody's beating on the door, and you got it really locked up, so they have to beat on it like 3 or 4 times. What you can do during the middle of their beating on it is you can just open the door real quick and then charge through. So let's say they go 1, 2, and then you open the door and you just go charge through. That'll catch them off guard, and you might even be able to catch them during the animation. You don't have to wait for them to beat the door in. You can open it whenever you want. And these two are in way more trouble. Especially that Becca. I did that to go ahead and get away from her flash. Now, on that note, let's say a survivor is trying to mess with you on this door, or you cause a threat to them on this door and they realize that you're really going to beat their butt if they try to come in at you. Something else you should be considering is that you can spawn zombies behind people. So if you have a threat at the door and the survivors are right here, make it hard on them. So put some creatures down here and then go back to your creature up here, and then they're going to have to back off. And then they have a choice. They can either deal with the zombies behind them or they can deal with you coming at them. And chances are you're going to clobber them unless they know how to handle it. So really, really good way to go and get some easy bites on the survivors and really overwhelm them. Make sure you're always just trying to find ways to overwhelm the survivors. You know, something as a note here, we're going through tips. The best way to get good at Mastermind is to play Survivor. You can play Mastermind and only Mastermind forever, and you're always going to be worse than somebody who's played Survivor and then plays Mastermind. The best way to get good at Mastermind is to play Survivor and play every single Survivor and then understand how they work. Because if you understand how they work, then you can counter them. And if you understand what good Masterminds do to you, you can replicate that. You need to play Survivor if you are going to get good at Mastermind, okay? And then speaking of that type of thing, let's go ahead and take a look at Tyrone here. So something you'll see a lot with Tyrone on doors, or really if you just have a crowd of zombies, Tyrone's trying to kick you, right? So let's say Tyrone's coming towards me. I got a zombie. I don't want to get kicked because if he kicks me, well, then I lose my power as a zombie. So a lot of times what I do against Tyrone is I'll walk towards him and then I do one of these and I walk back away. And then Tyrone will kick in midair and kick nothing. And then while he's doing that, he's kind of frozen in his kick animation, and then I just go and beat the crap out of him. A little trick I have here with Gherkin, which I might have covered in the Bioweapons video, so again, I recommend you check out the Bioweapons video. Because you see how I have Gherkin controlled here? But then the terminal's over there. I'm like, oh man, I can't get to them in time. I have to walk all the way around, and then by the time I get over there, they're gonna complete the objective. That sucks, right? Well, Gherkin does this thing where he can go and just poof. And you see how he hit Jan right there? Even though I'm have to do it through the wall. You can do this on a bunch of different areas on the maps here. One area on Abandoned Park is right here. There's also an area in the casino where you're in a closed off room with servers in it. Really good to do it over the desk in that map. Go ahead, look around. There's a lot of ways where you can stun survivors. Or like even, you see how he's getting bit right now, or Jan's getting bit? You can stun Jan and then your zombies can go ahead and double up on her. There's a lot of different ways where you can use Gherkin to just cause stuns rather than damage. We're in area 2 right now, and something to keep in mind is that your creatures actually get more health per area. This goes for a lot of things. It goes for your creatures, it goes for your cameras, it might go for your traps, I'm not sure. But so in area 1, you have your base health of a zombie, and there's a little bit of a range on each of them. Doesn't matter. But area 2, they get 20% more health. And then by area 3, they have 50% more health than they had in area 1. So your creatures will become stronger as the game goes on. So consider that when you are trying to build out your deck and how am I going to drain their economy? One of the ways that you can do that is keep in mind that your creatures will become stronger as the areas go on. Survivors reach their max power at around area 2. You reach your max power by area 3. So don't give up. Oh, random tip here I didn't even think to consider, but okay, I'll throw a Nia here. And, you know, get you over here. And I have a Region Aura Liquor. And a lot of you are familiar with what the Region Aura does, or just really what auras do in general. If I place them right here, then these two creatures will start having Region on them, which you can see. See how it just kicked in? Now, something I totally forgot to consider is that the more you put onto your aura zombies, the more that other zombies will benefit. So I should have a energy leech in here. And now watch all their faces once I use this. This liquor is going to have energy leech applied to it. And now I know that I used a spray, so they all would have gotten it anyway. But watch me spawn a new zombie here. And now this new zombie will have region applied to it. And then it will also have the energy leech applied to it because of this aura zombie here. So this will work on the liquors that have the aura, and it'll also work on the tough zombies that have the aura in area 2. Whatever they have, they share with everyone. It doesn't just have to be what they spawned with. And this made me think. So you see what I got going on here? I was just trying to spawn zombies to go ahead and get a jester so I can show you another tip. But you see how you got this big cluster of zombies right here? This is a bad choice. A lot of times people will cluster up zombies when they're spawning them, and then that makes it really easy food for survivors. So an area right here is a really good example, especially if you're running like a toughen net and your creatures are really strong, but they cost a little bit of money. So what you should do is you should space them out. Have a couple zombies here to harass, or like maybe spawn some on each side, but you don't want to group them up because that makes them really vulnerable to a Tyrone kick. It makes them really vulnerable to a Kashima. It makes them really vulnerable to a flashbang or a Martin ult or a Sam put. Like, there's so many reasons why you don't want to group up your creature. A freaking Jill rocket. You want to space them out. So instead of clumping them up all right here, you know, kind of reach around like this and space them out. This will allow you to deal with that flashbang. So a lot of times what I'll do is I'll space them out like this, and then I'll have this first zombie that'll harass them a bunch, which will bait out their flashbangs. So I'm sitting here going rabble, 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 and I'm sitting here playing with them on the doors. That'll force them to make a move. And then when they do that, I can come back here and follow up with another controlled zombie, because that's assuming this guy's eventually going to be taken out or stunned or something like that because they had to use a flashbang. Well, then I have backup zombies over here. And then also, if they try to rush through, they're going to rush through into other zombies that aren't stunned, which will cause them to get bit. Don't group up your zombies. Like, there's a time and a place for a lot of zombies, but typically if you can, especially in a narrow hallway like this, you want to space them out because these survivors got one way to go to get to the core. So what you want to do is you want to create a big path of resistance. You don't want just a clump that they can deal with all at once. You want to make it so they got to fight for every step that they get. Oh, another technique here, which I use every once in a while. It's usually like an end game scenario, but it can be useful. As you see my core right here? Well, this is really useful with the D field because you can block damage with the D field, but really any bioweapon. If you take the bioweapon here and let's say there's like 5 seconds left on the clock and they're really close to winning the game or clearing the core and you just need to do anything to buy yourself some time, if you take your bioweapon, you just stand in front of the core. They can't damage the core unless they get a good angle on it. So if you just kind of stand in front of the survivors while they're trying to shoot at the core, your bioweapon's going to tank all that damage and your core is going to stay alive. So the D field's really good at this because it reflects grenades back at survivors and it also absorbs bullets. But Mr. X is good at this too. Gherkin's good at this. They just block damage. Just get in front of this dang thing and then they can't damage it. And that can buy more time for your creatures to get bites. That can just, again, block damage to slow the survivors down, etc., etc. And also, be careful. You don't want to go ahead and just grab someone and then you're sitting there stuck in a grab animation and then the survivors go ahead and clear the core. Be very picky with your grabs when you are a Gherkin near a core. You are much further ahead not to grab people and just like clobber the crap out of them. Only time you ever really want to grab is if you are chasing the objective, so that could be somebody who has a security card, or you are really just interrupting what they're doing. You don't want to buy them free time while you sit there and try to clobber somebody's face. You always want to make sure you have a purpose behind what you're doing, and your purpose in this game is to stop them from doing the objective. So let's talk about bridges and EIS and zombies and how they all work together. So the Jester's a really, really, really good example of how to do this, and maybe I can... Oh, I might be able to get a Tyrone over here. So let's say I spawn in a Jester, and Jesters have that scream, right? So let me show you how you can control and make the survivors lose a ton of time using dudes like this. So any creature in general can interrupt EIS time. So if I go ahead and I use EIS here, you see how there's a cooldown timer? He's screaming. So that cooldown timer, I can't touch this stuff again until this cooldown's done. But if I have a creature, creatures don't care about cooldowns. They can just do this whenever. Ba-ba! And then go ahead and activate it. So this can be really, really nice if you're trying to be a big pain in the butt with bridges. So it's really good on amusement park and it's really good on abandoned park because there's so many bridges, right? Well, you can make this an even bigger pain in the butt if you're using a Jester. So let's try to show you a practical example of this. Now, what? Jan's pretty close, isn't she? So what I can do is this bridge is going to go ahead and get pretty close to being done. Well, I can scream right now. Now she's stunned. The bridge just came up, and then I can go ahead and touch this again. She's still recovering from the scream, or she was recovering from the scream, and then I can put the bridge down. So that makes it so that they can't really progress at all. The only way that they're going to be able to deal with this is if they shoot out the zombie or if they flash the zombie. This is really powerful on the research facility because they have a bad angle on you. But again, survivors that know what they're doing, they can counter this. But if they don't know what they're doing, you can get a really annoying strategy up against some of these survivors. It's really tough to deal with if you don't know how to deal with it. Oh, another thing I totally forgot is you see my tough zombie here? Oh no, I can't place him here. This is a little more helpful with the Ataveo because he's really hard to place. But if you press down on a D-pad, I'm sure there's a button on the PC as well. You can do a boop, and then they'll find a place where you can automatically place them. And then also you can spin your zombies around like this. So feel free to angle them appropriately if you want to angle them at a door or something like that. Something I don't ever really think about, but you can use is if you take a look in the top right-hand corner, you can snap a cursor to a current camera. So you can go ahead and press square, and then it'll bring it back to where you're at in case you're forgetting where you're at. But also you can quick jump to survivors. So I'm like, oh God, Sam's about to go ahead and do the gate. Well, if I go ahead and I press L2 on my controller and you see how there's a triangle that shows up next to him, well, I press triangle now and it brings me right to him. I don't use it very often. I probably should, but it is something you can do. And now that I see an Ivy in my deck, put Ivies in a place that are going to be crowded. So you put an Ivy right here and then I put like a bunch of creatures around them. Oh my God. You're going to be attacking them with your creatures, and then this Ivy's going to be bouncing around, and it's going to go ahead and try to grab them and eat them in their one-hit kill. And that's just really tough for survivors to deal with. And now that I'm using a dealer, actually, you see how she has an extra attack here called the Claw Slash? Well, let's see what it looks like. So this right here is a big deal. 5, 5, 5, 5. You're taking a ton of time off and you're doing a ton of damage. But another thing you're doing is you're draining their economy. When you use a Claw Slash, every takes away 10 credits from the survivor. If you're using Daniel and you use his special skill, that allows them to take 25 credits off per swipe. So that can really drain their economy and really hurt them late game. Real quick to talk about shields here. Let's say Valerie's about to kick my butt. She's shooting at the camera. I'm like, oh God, oh God, oh God. If I use a shield, not only is it going to protect me, but it's going to heal my camera. So this is where it gets really annoying with auto shield Nikolai. Another thing that the shield is going to do is it makes it so that if you have a malware attached to your camera, it's going to clear the malware from Jan. What it's not going to do is it's not going to protect you from Jan's ultimate skill. It used to, but it doesn't anymore. So cameras are really good for buying time against survivors that are really good at shooting your cameras. It's good at clearing malware, and it's also good at healing your camera. Another thing you can do is, let's say you don't have a camera and she's about to go ahead and shoot you out. You're like, oh God, oh God, oh God. If you flip real quick like this and then they shoot out the camera, they don't get the time back. So a lot of times what you'll see masterminds do, they'll flick their cameras red and then blank and then red. That's because they're trying to time out when a survivor is going to shoot out their camera so they don't give a free 10 seconds to the survivor. Again, a clever survivor knows how to deal with this. I think I talk about that in my advanced survivor tips video, but you can take advantage of survivors that don't know what they're doing by just flicking off a camera real quick like that. So I want to teach you something really important about poison and energy leech. The amount of poison you do with a creature and the amount of energy leech you get back as a creature when you're doing attacks is tied to your attack damage. Forget about the infectious aura. That's a totally different mechanic. I'm talking about when you hit a survivor and you cause poison damage, or when you hit a survivor and you get energy leech. That is tied to how much damage you do. All right? So when you're looking at your equipment and it does 20% more damage when you do attacks with creatures, that also means you're getting 20% more energy leech back and you're doing 20% more poison damage. Okay? So I want to show you kind of what this looks like. So I'm just going to try to drain my bioenergy a bunch. And then I will show you how big of a deal this can be. So let me get all this out of here, and I'm going to go attack Sam in the lobby. So we're pretty much all the way down to 0. So I'm going to go spawn a zombie right here. And then I'm going to... And now I'm using energy leech, and I'm at 0. Or I'm at 0.5. So I'm gonna go 1, 2, 3, and I'm gonna back off and let's go ahead and see how much we have. So we have almost 3, right? And then you just saw it go up again. So that again is tied to how much damage you're doing. That's a really big distinction. Now I'm at base damage, 120 per swipe, 350 per bite. This is the lowest it can be. Now I'm gonna show you how much you can gain back if you have really high damage. And keep in mind, you're also doing a ton of poison damage when you do this. So now let's go to the other end of the spectrum here when it comes to recovering bioenergy. So I'm going to use up pretty much all my bioenergy here on purpose so that you can really get a good idea of how much you get back. Now, keep in mind, you see that timer that's counting down? I can make that go real high. And something that's really cool is that you get bioenergy back with energy leech, even if you have that timer going that pauses your bioenergy. And that timer exists because of some of the skill cards I just used. Now let's see how much we get back. We had about 0 on, right? Or just about 1. Watch how much bioenergy I'm going to get back from this. So we got the huge bite in there, right? We got freaking get 10 bioenergy back from that one bite. So this is what I'm saying, where it's a really, really big deal to consider how much damage you're doing and how much that's going to affect your energy leech and how much that'll affect poison. It really makes a big difference. Now, something that's kind of on my mind now that I'm in this area is if you go ahead over here, let's spawn in Mr. X. I think I talk about this in the Bioweapons video. But Mr. X kind of sucks at doors, right? So it's like, oh god. And then the survivors just keep running around you, and then you just can't do anything because of the door games. They changed a while ago to make it so that you can counter this and you just kind of punch right through the door. So don't be too afraid of the doors anymore when you're Mr. X. You can bull rush through them, you can punch through them, there's lots of things you can do. Another thing to keep in mind is that when you are tracked, so Mr. X has a tracking ability, but there's also tracking mines. You can see the survivors while they're tracked, and you can also do 20% more damage. So typically he does 300 per swipe, well now he's doing 360. It's because of that extra 20% damage. So consider that also when you're trying to get your energy leech and you're trying to get your poison in. Your creatures will be doing more damage to survivors that are tracked. Another thing to keep in mind that I'm not sure I mentioned is, let's say you have a creature here. I'm gonna go ahead and throw a remote shell down. These things are awesome. But what'll happen when you use that zombie, and let me go ahead and really try to illustrate it by putting a bunch of stuff everywhere else, is you have a natural bioenergy rate. If you are controlling a zombie, the rate at which you recover bioenergy is half. Same thing when you're in a firearm. It's always been like this for creatures. If you are controlling a creature, your passive bioenergy rate is not going to be as high. So if you don't have a reason to be in a creature, don't be in it, because you're just slowing down how much bioenergy you get. Okay? And also, on the note of things getting better per area, so I said creature health goes up per area, and then your camera health goes up per area, your traps, all that type of stuff. Another thing that goes up per area is how much bioenergy you recover passively. So you will recover bioenergy at a certain rate in area 1. By the time you're reaching area 3, it's much faster. You can time lickers on doors if you go ahead and kind of listen to how they're screeching. This is something you really got to get good at and really pay attention to what's on the other side of the door. But if there's survivors on the other side of the door, a lot of times what you'll see is lickers will jump at doors when there's survivors on the other side of the door. And then they just hit the wall and they don't do anything. Well, if you listen to a licker and then you open up a door when a survivor's on the other side with your zombie, then the licker will charge right through that door and just jump on someone immediately. You really got to get good at it. You really got to time it, but it's really, really powerful because a licker just jumping onto somebody right away, that messes up everybody's strategy. Nobody ever expects it. One quick thing with equipment here. It's very, very powerful to run fresh blood if you're running a creature build because it makes your creatures way more bitey, which makes it way harder to deal with for survivors. Now, not to talk about bioweapons too much because I do have a separate bioweapon video, but something that you can do with Yativeo that I like to do is, let's say you got a bunch of survivors in this area and they need to come through here. One thing I like to do with Yativeo is I like to put Yat in a place where they gotta deal with it. So that's usually a door. So something you can do with a door with Yativeo is you put Yat right on the other side of a door, right? Blam. And what that does is it protects Yativeo's weak spots, which are all of those little red spots that you can shoot out. But what you can also do because of the door is you can, oh, actually, now that I think about this, real quick, if you don't know this, you can cycle through EIS stuff by pressing D-pad. Probably should mention that. I didn't learn that one for a long time. But in this scenario, what you can do is you can lock the door, right? And then Yativeo's sitting there. Now, what do they have to do in order to get through the door? They have to beat down the door. So what that does is as they try to beat down the door, and you get used to timing doors, if I'm in Yativeo and they're about to slam through, well, I can use Devour, and right as they're coming through, they get devoured. And it forces the situation on them because they can't get through the door without barging through it, or using Master Lock or using Tyrant's Kick. Either way, they'd be too close. So by locking the door, you protect Yativeo, and you also force the situation into the Devour. So it's a really, really nice way to use Yativeo's force them on a door. Other interesting spots for Yativeo that people don't really know or think about very often is there's a spot like right in here where you can stuff them. Yeah. And then the survivors can't walk around them. I hate this spot, but it's really, really awesome. And then again, your red spots get covered for the most part, and then they just cannot walk around you. You are an extreme body block. A little technique I like to do with traps, especially around doors. Here, let me find a door. Something I like to do with doors is, let's say I put a trap on the door and I want them to walk into it. Well, something you can do with crawlers is you put a crawler over the top of it, and that just protects the trap a little bit. You can also stuff traps under Yativeo. I guess I should have mentioned that. But putting a trap underneath a creature provides a little bit of protection, makes it hard to see, and then you can go ahead and get a little more value out of your trap. One thing that I really love doing with Alex here... Oh, you died. Let's go ahead and use another person. One thing I really love doing with Alex is I'm going to go ahead and poison Sam here and then get this contagion going, right? So let's just go ahead and, I mean, you're going to get poisoned anyway, right? Because she's running Amplify, he gets poisoned really fast. So if you're in Area 2 and then the survivors are trying to do an objective, we talked about this earlier with the blinding flash, but Alex kind of has her own blinding flash that's directed with poison. If the survivors are poisoned, what you can do is you can use this contagion skill, which I'm going to let him get bit first so you can see it. You can use this contagion skill. What it'll do is it'll make him puke.
As expected, your death
It makes him take a ton of damage. It interrupts what they're doing, and it makes them really vulnerable to swipes like that. So Contagion's awesome at buying you a ton of time in Area 2. Because if they're working on this dang thing and you use Contagion, they have to start all over. I love it. Something you'll see happen a lot is zombies will bang on doors, and you can force this situation to happen. So let's say the survivors are trying to come through the door. They bust it open, and then you close the door on them right away. The rest of your creatures that you aren't controlling will start banging on the door at that point. And this can be a blessing and a curse, but it really will slow down the survivors because they can't get through the door. You can't get through the door. Nobody's getting through that dang door until that zombie's done beating on the door. So it can be useful. Use it to your advantage. It can also get in your way, but just know it is going to happen when you are playing door games with multiple zombies at the door. Now, this is more of a ideology thing, but let's talk a little bit about priority. So there's some priority characters to deal with in this game. So if you can, one of the top priority characters that you need to take out is going to be Valerie. She's right here. She saves the whole team over and over and over again. She's ridiculous. She causes grenades to spawn. She causes the team to do more damage. She can heal everyone. So if you can, murder this little piece of crap. Now, don't ruin your whole objective, which is to stop the survivors, just so you can chase Valerie. But if you can take a couple of extra shots at her, go ahead and do it. She has lower health than a lot of the other survivors. She only has 1100 HP. And if you take her out, ain't nobody else got healing over here! Unless they got a first aid spray. So then they have to direct their attention to saving Valerie. Other high priority characters would be anybody who is doing the objective or has the objective. So in Area 2, whoever has a security card, if you keep harassing them, they can't get the terminals done, so they can't advance. So if you have your bioweapon, don't be afraid to go ahead and chase down the person who has a security card. Ignore everyone else and just go ahead and rabble and chase down the person with a security card, okay? Other things to keep in mind in terms of what the survivors can do to you. Tyrone does have second wind, and if you down him, there is a chance he'll pick himself up. So be a little careful with that. I don't see it too much anymore. It used to be a big deal, but every once in a while, a Tyrone will be able to revive themselves. And then on the topic of priority targets, another one is Jan. Jan can attack your cameras and harass you a bunch. Now, a lot of times what I'll see is malware Jan. Here's my take on malware Jan. There's no such thing as a good solo queue malware Jan, because malware Jan is only powerful when she has a really good supporting team. What a good malware Jan can do is she can run off on her own and set up all these different cameras and make it so when you try to use your camera, like let's say I would use this here, that would break my camera because there'll be a purple aura around your camera when it's infected by malware. And if you use anything, it'll break your camera and then they get a free 10 seconds. So what you can do with a malware Jan is you go ahead and you just harass them a little bit. Throw just like a couple zombies in their way and that'll mess up everything they're trying to do. Now, it will be tough if you got 3 other people that are really harassing the objective, but just a couple of zombies by malware Jan every once in a while, and that'll really slow down her progress on taking out your cameras, because these creatures will chase her around. Jan's okay at dealing with creatures, and that'll make it so you can focus on the other 3, who are at a disadvantage because there's only 3 of them. You know, malware Jan, just give her a little something to play with, and that'll slow her down significantly. You can't let her run untethered. Another really important thing for masterminds is to know your double camera areas. Some of them are more obvious than others, but you need to learn them, because especially in Area 2, a good team's going to attack your cameras. And unless you know how to deal with it, you're screwed. Now, camera shields can help, but also just camera awareness can help. So you see this one right here, this terminal? It's very common for you to go ahead and be like, I'm going to shoot you, and then you go blah, 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 blah. And then they just destroy you right away. They'll get a good angle on you and they take out your camera. What a lot of people don't know about this area in particular, and again, there's a lot of these, is this camera over here. You can go ahead and use another gun over here, and you can shoot all the way down here. These things got a long range, and you can interrupt actions on the terminal. So again, we keep talking about interfering with the terminal. You can use contagion, you can use firearms, you can use blinding flash. there's a lot of different angles that you can hit these survivors from. And other things to know about is there is, especially with this invulnerability anchor. Invulnerability anchor is not what it used to be because people understand it better, but there's some really, really tough spots for survivors to deal with this invulnerability anchor. We can go through a couple of them, but like right here's a really good one. So I'll get a couple of creatures in here. Now watch me go ahead and put this thing on here. And there's some stuff that they never fixed, or maybe they intended to do this, but this invulnerability anchor has a lot of range even through things. Like, look at this. I can come so far with this dang thing and attack you pretty much in your spawn with an invulnerable zombie. Maybe this will break it? I didn't even break it. So there's some areas like this where some reason the invulnerability anchor will go through it. And what are the survivors going to do? A clever Jan will know how to deal with this one in particular, and I think I talked about it in the advanced survivor tips video. But there's a lot of locations like this. There's one right here on downtown. Here, let me show you another one on downtown. Here, right here, camera 21 in area 3. So I'll put some zombies right here and I'll hit them with invulnerability anchor. Well, bam. So you gotta be pretty quick on this in area 3, otherwise they'll shoot you out. But you get a couple of zombies spawned in, and then you can go and come right up here. And for some dang reason, this invulnerability anchor does not break when you come all the way up here. So if you can get like 3 or 4 zombies spawned up on this stairs or down, you know, at the bottom of the stairs and get them to walk up here, it is insanely tough for the survivors to deal with, because they'd have to bust through this, and how are they going to do that? Now, the way a survivor team should deal with this is they would actually come over here and shoot out the camera. But again, not all survivors are going to think these things through. I'm of the opinion that just about everything that a mastermind does can be countered by survivors if the survivors know what they're doing. But that's more rare than you think it is. There's not a lot of survivors that really know all the different ins and outs of mastermind tricks. The only exception I can really think of that's kind of impossible to deal with sometimes is a Nikolai that abuses some of his modified gear and auto shield mechanics. Another really good spot for the invulnerability anchor is right here. So what is it, camera 14 on casino in area 2. So I'll do this right here, pop this onto here, and this thing reaches really far, and it's really good at blocking off this top area. Let's say camera 19, it's very common for Yorick to spawn here. I'll get out of here. It's really common for Yorick to spawn up in here. And then this invulnerability anchor on camera 14 is really nice at protecting this whole general area, because not only is it going to protect all this area immediately around the camera, for some dang reason, you can walk all the way down here with these zombies. You can cover a ton of ground. Lickers do so much damage when they got invulnerability anchor, and they can just run around through here. Well, probably won't be to like, yeah, right here where it'll break, right? A solid wall. So what you'll notice is that if it's not a solid wall, the invulnerability anchor can probably go through it. Sometimes what you'll run into is a stun and run team. And pretty much what that means is you can have a bunch of creatures here, blah, blah, and blah, blah, and blah, blah. And you can just have a ton of them, right? They're everywhere. And what a team will do is they'll do a Martin flash, and then they'll run right through it. Or they'll do a Tyrone kick, and they'll run right through it. They'll use a flashbang, and they'll run right through all your tough creatures. This is especially applicable to a net, because you can have really, really strong creatures that a good survivor team is going to realize it's too much effort to take them down. So they'll stun and run. So something I recommend with stunning and running is, especially with a net, because she's probably going to have Berserker on here with your creatures, is make sure you try to keep doors open. Again, smart survivor team, what they'll do is they'll stun all your creatures, they'll charge through here, and then they'll close the door behind them. So if you see them doing that, make sure you open that door. You grab a creature and you reopen that door for a couple reasons. One, if you take a look over here, dogs and lickers do not have very good hands. They got claws, so they can't open doors. On top of that, if you have really tough creatures and they are berserked creatures can really make up a lot of ground. So if you had them get stunned here and then the survivors run off, try to get their objective done, these creatures over here, they will chase them across the map, especially if they're berserked, and they will catch up to them. And let me tell you, I have seen so many games that just miserably fall apart for survivors because they stunned the creatures right here. They went and they did their objective over here, and then all these dudes just ran all the way through the map with their berserker, and then they're waiting for these guys at the door, and then they just get eaten alive right around in this area. So if you're not using a door actively to play door games and lock it on them and mess with them, keep the door open. It'll make it so that your creatures can just run right through and cause a lot of damage. Again, if you're using Deadbolt Spencer, you probably want the doors locked. But if you're just running like a tough net, keep these things open, man. These creatures will run around and cause a lot of damage all on their own. Another little thing about Spencer here, which I don't think I talked about in the Bioweapons video, is this double D field can combo up really nice with creatures, right? So let's say like the survivors are around the D field and they're trying not to get bit or hit by it. If you have a bunch of creatures around, you'll animation lock some of these survivors running to force them to run into the D field. You see that? So if you bite them from the front and they gotta push off a creature, chances are all of these animations that they're being forced into because of the creatures will force them into the D field. And then the double D field lasts longer than any other D field. So even though it doesn't have the, you know, flash appeal of the really fast D field that goes boom, 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 it definitely can really cause a lot of problems for the survivors. Now, I don't think this tip is super helpful or useful, but it is funny and it'll mess with them. So camera 14 here on area 2 of the prison. If you take a look, you see all those little holes through the grating there? You see the shield that protects the survivors, but there's little holes. What you can do if you got a real good aim here is you can fire some shots in there and you can hit the survivors. See how I didn't really hit the grating, but I hit the floor? You see those holes going right through into the floor? So survivors stand right about there when they're in the box trying to get their items for the next area. So you can shoot them right through there if you want to mess with them. It might kick them out of the box too a little bit, so you can interrupt their actions. Again, it's not a really big deal, but it is funny. You see Sam here? He's pretty close to the door. A really good way to screw Sam over is to make sure you lock the door. Well, bam, and then go ahead and use your bioweapon. And then Sam has to beat through that door in order to escape. So what'll happen is a lot of times they'll try to touch the door and pound through it, but you start beating on them, they don't got time. So go ahead and lock the door and then use your bioweapon. And then especially with Mr. X, just start swinging right away. And there's a good chance you're gonna down him. This last tip as a mastermind is very much a philosophy on how to handle the game. I mentioned it earlier in the video, but the best way to be a mastermind is to consider all the options and consider all the different things that could be going on. So you need to understand the other side of the coin. So let me show you what I mean by that. So here's Becca. And there's a bunch of different things that are going on with Becca right now. So if you go ahead and take a look here and go into her inventory, she can only have so many different items. She can only carry so much of certain items. And she has a certain set of skills that she chose before the game. In this particular setup, she's Sniper Becca. Sniper Becca does have weaknesses. You can charge at her, but she can also hurt you. She also can have a really, really good economy. So part of what you need to do as a mastermind, if you really want to get good, is you got to play Survivor. You got to understand the types of strategies that good survivors use, good builds that they use, and then learn what each of those builds suffers from, learn what their economy looks like, focus in on all the different factors that survivors have to deal with. I have a lot of videos on the channel that'll teach you a ton of different things about survivors. The more you learn about Survivor, the better you're going to be at Mastermind. So not only does she have these certain set of skills that she also has an economy that she has to think about. So if you take a look over here, she only has so many credits that she starts with. So she can only buy so many of a certain thing. So when you're trying to strategize as a mastermind, you really got to think of economy. You really do. The economy for the survivors includes a few things. It includes what they pick up, and that could be altered by folks like Valerie, where they pick up more grenades, or folks like Becca, where they pick up more ammo. That could be affected by how many umbrella credits they have. So you see here, she has 250 at the start. That means that she can only buy 250 credits worth of stuff. And it's also affected by a limitation of how many of each item will spawn in the chest, right? So you can really try to focus in on a certain element of that and really dig deep. This game does not favor dabblers. This game favors people who go all in on a certain strategy and they really, really, really drive it into the survivors. So that could be high poison Alex, that could be fast trap Alex, that could be really tough HP Annette, that can be really strong Daniel, that could be Infinite X Daniel, that can be Super Spam Spencer, there's so many different builds that are out there. But what a theme with all of these really powerful builds have, Survivor and Mastermind, is that they really specialize at something. And take a look here. She can only buy so many green herbs. She can only buy so many blue herbs. She can only buy so many grenades. She can only have so much of some of these things. Now, there is infinite stuff on ammo and repair kits, but everything else here runs out. They will run out. And then not only that, even though some of these items are infinite, they will eventually run out of credits. So you can try to build zombies that are really, really, really strong HP, so they take a lot of resources to go ahead and kill. That will drain their umbrella credits. Or you can have really, really strong biocores with Spencer. That will drain their credits. You can run Alex, and then they will only have so many blue herbs throughout the match. That'll make it so your poison becomes more effective as the game goes on. This is a game of economy. It always has been, ever since day one. Whichever side is better at managing what they got is the team that wins. So it's either going to be Mastermind or it's going to be Survivor. The Survivors can't fight back if they don't have anything to fight back with. So if you can outdo their economy by managing your own economy as a Mastermind, and that includes getting your bioenergy up passively, that includes using things like Energy Leech, that includes not wasting your bioenergy on creatures that don't provide any value back for you. Whichever side manages their economy the best is going to win 99 out of 100 times. So that's my biggest piece of advice, is make sure you know both sides of the ball and then learn how to specialize and focus in on an idea and then also balance your economy. If you can do all of those things, you're going to be a very successful Mastermind. So I hope this was helpful. This was the Mastermind video. We stream every single night, twitch.tv/SwingPoynt. I want to see you guys there. I'd love to have you there. Links in the description. Go ahead and follow over there. If you don't have an account, that's fine. You don't need to. It's all free. You can watch whenever you like. I'd love to see you guys there. I hope this was helpful. I hope this helps out new Masterminds who are still trying to figure it out. If you have any tips yourself, I'm sure there's a lot of things I could have included in this video that I didn't. Please put them in the comments down below. Go help out the community. And to repeat, the point of this video was to make it so that Masterminds have a less frustrating time playing Mastermind. If you're new to the game, it can be very hard. Survivors are really good nowadays. If you're not new to the game, it can still be really hard. So all these little tips, my hope is to make it so that you feel more comfortable playing Mastermind so you can enjoy the game more. So thank you guys so much. Thank you for being a part of this community with me. I hope you've enjoyed Resident Evil Resistance throughout all the months. We're definitely on the downtrend of me making videos for this, but we will be covering Resident Evil 8. We'll be covering Back 4 Blood. We'll be covering Ash vs. Evil Dead. All sorts of fun stuff, again, on Twitch and on YouTube. So thank you guys for being here. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for following. Thank you for being a part of the community. And again, thank you for being on Twitter. Thank you for being everywhere. You guys are the best. Love you all, and I'll see you in the next video that we do around here.